Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to do sort of my review and first thoughts on the new Space Marine Codex. Now there's a huge amount to speak about when it comes to this, not just in regard to Space Marine Codex, which there is plenty to speak about, including the White Scar and Ultramarine supplements, which will be in a separate video because people will probably want to specialise and watch them in itself. We're going to speak mainly about just the general Marines here. But the other thing as well, and this has been going through my mind for a while, is that what does this mean for the game in total? We're now sort of moving on from, say, the initial sort of index to codex phase to now tightening / evolving the rules from the codexes themselves. And quite rightly, it should sort of be Space Marines to begin with. They are the poster child, the main sort of army that we see get used in terms of introduced people to the game. So I think it's quite good that this would be the book that they decide to tighten up the game and move forward, and certainly show some improvements because they've now released all the codexes and see where stuff is. But what does that mean for the game in total? What does it mean for other armies? What does it mean for balance? What does it mean for future releases? Because let's face it, there has been a huge amount of Space Marine releases. So I might speak about that towards the end of this video. I really want to focus beginning on sort of Space Marines because this is what it's about. Speak about them, but really want to give my view on what's been going on really, and sort of what I've been thinking the past few months, and then the months going forward, what I think may be a plan, what they should go down, whether people disagree with me or not. We'll see, but I'll talk about that towards the end because this is probably a very interesting time for the game going forward. So yeah, let's begin with, the aforementioned Space Marine Codex. So first thing to note is, artwork and everything, all very nice. There's some, new artwork in there that's all very nice. Got a new artwork for the front of the Codex, which obviously the Codex is coming forward. I don't think any of them got a new artwork except Death Guard because it was a new force in general. They were all like the previous Codexes, just using the same artwork. So you've got new artwork there, which is nice to see. And I knew a few people grumbled about it being old artwork when all the Codex is coming out. So maybe going forward we're going to get new artwork, which is kind of nice on that one. But we're mainly here to look at the rules because that's what everyone's sort of digging. So the first one, and probably the most changed and we're all interested in, is of course Defenders of Mankind section. So a lot to speak about here. So this is a huge change for general rules of its Adeptus Astartes, and this was really mainly beforehand, and they show know no fear. That's kind of what it was in the previous Codex, and that was, in my view, very lackluster. This rule is now been changed to just be part of the Angels of Death rule, which vastly improves. Angels of Death obviously encompasses a nation know no fear, bolter discipline, shock assault, and combat doctrine. So you're almost getting an additional 3 rules, and they are all much better than just rerolling morale. Simply put, we'll start with, obviously, you have a nation know no fear, stays the same, fine, we don't need to worry about that. We have Bolter Discipline, which is now appears to be in its final form, and in general, excellent addition and helps, bring more firepower. Overall, I like it. OK, vehicles don't benefit from it, but we did see people starting to abuse a few things on it. Dreadnoughts do get it, so fine. Generally, we all knew Bolter Discipline had been playing about with, and it did add a lot of firepower and a lot of, extra stuff to Space Marines. Great. It's now in its final form. Glad to see it in print. The next one is Shock Assault. If a unit makes a charge move, is charged, or performs heroic intervention, +1 attack characteristic of the models in the unit. It's +1 attack. I mean, that one sort of came out of nowhere, but it certainly adds, if Bolter Discipline adds on in terms of shooting, then Shock Assault helps in combat. Really depends on the type of force you're going for, but it benefits both, and I think that is a healthy addition for these sort of, elite style armies, that they need to have these sort of rules that really help them benefit. The last one, and possibly the most interesting one, is of course the combat doctrines, which I think everyone was a bit surprised on seeing. I didn't see any leaks on it myself, probably some people did, but it was such an interesting addition to see. So I'm sure most people have now seen it. Now is basically at the start of the game you begin, and I'm paraphrasing on this one because I'm going to try and condense it. You start in Devastator Doctrine, which adds 1 to the armor characteristic of heavy and grenade units. You can then, in the next turn, go into Tactical Doctrine, which adds 1 to the armor characteristic of rapid fire and assault weapons. And lastly, the next turn after that, unless there's stratagems switch around, which there is, it might be just in supplements. Assault Doctrina, which adds 1 to your AP with a pistol and melee weapons. So that really adds a lot in itself depending on the force you're going with, and David is extremely excited to see this. He plays very heavy, he plays Imperial Fist and White Scars. So his Imperial Fist, he's quite happy with the Devastator Doctrine because he's got a lot of heavy weapons, but he also has a lot of bolt weapons, rapid fire ones. So both the Devastator and tactical ones are going to be absolutely excellent for him. And it's going to be interesting to see heavy bolters. I think they're going to become -2. We're going to see most, bolt weapons in themselves. I mean, the Primaris ones are going to be -2 as well. That's going to be very, very powerful depending on what doctrine you're going with. And it's going to really change people how they plan out their army. And then you've also got the Assault Doctrine. So if you're going, for instance, he loves his White Scars and he loves to be quite charging with them, that's going to be interesting as well to see them use an Assault Doctrine. So this very much tactical flexibility I really, really like. There's a couple of things to know when it does come to combat doctrines. And what it is now it appears that every model from your army needs to have this rule except for servitors and unaligned, which makes me think that you can't have, correct me if I'm wrong, your army counts all detachments. That means that things like Custodians and Astra Militarums or Astra Militarum or Knights can't be in your army, otherwise you give up combat doctrines. Correct me if I'm wrong in that assumption, but I can read it as, I'll read it out just for clear. Models in this unit gain a bonus depending on which combat doctrine is active for your army. See opposite. If you have a battle-forged army, units only benefit from this bonus if every unit for your army has this ability, excluding servitor and unaligned units. So that seems pretty clear to me that your army has to have it. So no, shield captain riding a bike going into units, no Astra Militarum, maybe like a Baneblade or maybe like, the Loyal 32. You'd have to give up combat doctrines. And I really like this. This dissuades people from maybe taking, alliance-based Imperial forces. And that's a very interesting thing. Will it fully discourage people? Are the combat doctrines going to be enough? Maybe you can build your army to get the most out of it so that you go, I really don't want allies because I'm going to get a lot more effects from the Devastator Doctrine or the Tactical Doctrine. That's very interesting, and I absolutely love that. I don't play very much allies. I prefer, going pure forces. Now, it might be a case I might add on a knight, especially with chaos. But I really like this idea that if you go a pure Space Marine army, and now if you go unaligned, maybe that might include assassins. I don't know if they've got the unaligned keyword. I think that's when they include that. That's who they've got in mind, but I could be wrong. That's really good just to go, you're going a pure Space Marine army, you get an additional rule. And I really like that. I think, that's something certainly needs to be done for Chaos to dissuade them from going sort of, alliances with demons or Chaos Knights to go, you go pure Chaos Marines, you get an extra rule as well. But we'll maybe talk about Chaos towards the end of this video when I speak about the game as a whole. Overall, for Space Marines, I think that's a great rule. You want to go pure Space Marines, here's an additional bit. Don't, you lose it, fine. But Angels of Death improvement in and of itself is a huge improvement to reroll morale, which I thought was just a very lackluster and one that did not work towards Marines. It heavily improves it. And I just think that the Bolt Discipline Shock Assault alone adds so much. So I'm really thankful to just see a huge improvement on the general rules as such. We'll go into the sort of units in themselves, so we'll speak about the HQs, etc. Go into that. So HQs, the biggest change I'd probably say in HQs is that there are no special characters as far as I see in the Space Marine book at all, like none. No Guilliman, no Captain Lysander, no Shrike, gone, they're all gone. Where could they be? I'll give you one guess. Many of them are already in supplements. The Ultramarine one's the White Scars one, they're in supplements, so I'm going to guess they're going to be all in supplements. This is kind of a positive, kind of a negative. It means that if you're going to go Ultramarines and or their first founding, I think that you're basically going to, if you go Ultramarines, you need to get the Codex to get all their special character rules, and there is quite a number of them in there. Same with White Scars, same with Imperial Fists. So you'd be buying a book and you'd only get a few units, and that'd be a bit upsetting in one regard as well. What I'd say to that is that there is so many stratagems, there's warlord traits, there's psychic abilities that add so much to the army in general for the Ultramarines and White Scars, and that'll probably work with whatever other supplements are going to be, and I'm about to speculate which ones are which, that I think they are good. If you really want to go general Space Marines and there's lots of options in the book, great, you've got that book there. You go, I want to do Ultramarines, maybe want to do some of their successors, that's the sort of force you're going with, then you're going to need supplements. If you want to go such a general Marine force that you go, I could just about use them and they could be a successor chapter of any Marine force. And I know people like to be very fluff-wise, they don't want to, they're like, I'm a White Scar successor. Some people who want to be more competitive are like, I could be any chapter I choose. Then you're going to need to buy a lot of supplements, because that's to get the most out of your army. You're going to have to buy a lot of supplements. But there is a huge amount of tactical flexibility if you add on these supplements. Like, I think most of the supplements come with 15 relics to choose from. That's a huge addition, not even counting stratagems. So yeah, all in the HQs, special units gone. You've got mostly just your HQs in there. I'll speculate quickly on what I think the supplements are going to be, because this is a good part where I sort of calculated it. So working out the special characters from the previous codexes, and I may have got my math wrong on some of them. Ultramarines, there was 7, and they've moved, I think, into the Ultramarine Codex, fine. Imperial Fists, there was 1, which was Captain Lysander, I believe. But if you count their successor chapters as well, and I probably do so in this case, Crimson Fists have 1, which is Pedro, I can't remember his name, but he's a successor, so I imagine he'd be in the Imperial Fist supplement book. And then you've also got Black Templars, which is a successor to Imperial Fist. They may get their own codex, they may supplement, they may not. They've got about 5 units that have been taken out of the codex, if you count the Servitors and the Crusader squads, so they may count towards Imperial Fists. White Scars had 1, Salamanders had 1, Raven Guard have 1. So that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah, with Salamanders and Raven Guard, so 8, but there's only 6 codexes. But if you put Crimson Fists and Black Templars into Imperial Fists, then you're going to be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we know there's 6 supplements. So I'm going to jump around a wee bit here. So maybe Black Templars will be one in themselves, and that would make sense because they work very different to Imperial Fists in general. And part of me thinks that Black Templars are going to be there. 2 things made me think that the other one might be Iron Hands. One, that we know that Iron Hands are getting a new model, a sort of Iron Father, it could be Iron Father or Tech Priest, but a lot of people are speculating it's going to be Iron Father to give Iron Hands a bit more flexibility. The other part, I'm going to jump over a wee bit here to War Gear, I think it was where I found this. Yeah, War Gear, and I was going to speak about this later, but I think we'll speak about it now, is that in the War Gear section of the book, they speak about bolt weapons, and there's an important note here. Note that the following weapons found in Codex supplements are bolt weapons. So they're speaking about supplements and future supplements here. Blackout, Dorn's Arrow, Gauntlets of Ultramar, Gorgon's Wrath, and Quitus are all bolter weapons. So that's weapons we know are going to be in supplements. So Blackout, I couldn't work out where it was. Someone can help me on that one. Dorn's Arrow was Pedro Cantor. That's the Crimson Fist guy, I forgot his name. Gauntlets of Ultramar, and I'm pretty sure I got that from the previous Space Marine Codex. That's what his weapon was, I'm 90% sure. Gauntlets of Ultramar are Malnus Calgar. Gorgon's Wrath sounds very much like an Iron Hands sort of weapon, the Gorgon obviously being their Primarch. That makes me think there's an Iron Hands supplement. And Quintus is again Ultramarines. The others can't see, there didn't look like there was any in the White Scars one because there's only 2 units of it, and the Ultramarines one I think I've covered. So yeah, I wanted to quickly speak about there, just I'm diving away from HQs on that one, what my thoughts on the supplements are going to be. So if I was to bet, I would go Ultramarines, Imperial Fists, and Black Templars, White Scars, Salamanders, Raven Guard. Black Templars may get put into Imperial Fists, and Iron Hands would be another one with their Iron Father being in the supplement. if that's their name, correct me if I'm wrong, and then that Gorgon's Wrath possibly is part of the Iron Hands. That's my speculation, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but that's sort of my bets because there are 6 supplements come through. HQs, I'm not going to go into in too much detail because they're more or less the same. I couldn't check through every 80 units in this to check every single detail because it would take me a very long time. But the Phobos army's in there, and generally how they've laid out the units are a little bit better, so I'm quite pleased with that. Elites, there's been many changes. Let's go into them. Elites, you have the company champion. So let's just find him, company champion. Improved heroic intervention closer to characters, so they can move towards characters. And as a sort of first fight ability, if they're within 1 inch of an enemy character. So similar to, you know, your Slaanesh, Emperor's Children, and other forces where that's, I'll just read it here. If Modo is within 1 inch of an enemy character, Modo at the start of the fight phase, it can fight first in the fight phase, even if it did not charge. If the enemy unit has unit has a charged or has a similar ability, then you alternate. So very similar to that one, but it just means if you end up with the character, you could they have to think about it because otherwise you're going to be attacking. And they've got superlative duelist when resolving an attack made with melee weapons by this model against the character. You can reroll hit and wound rolls. So company champion is really about sort of trying to kill out the enemy characters. Now you are only damage 2, so how much you might kill them is a bit of a tricky one. But generally, you know, it's nice to see an upgrade to a unit in the Codex. Next, I want to speak about so many units in this Codex. Is the Invictor Tactical Warsuit, almost a very new unit coming there. So this is page 138, I think that was for my reference to find it easier. So you can see this being a fairly devilish unit. 90 points, Fragstorm grenade launchers 4 points. I might get some points wrong, but I believe I'll try to double check them. Heavy bolter is 10 points, 10 to 20 points for its main weapon, and this is between the Insidium Cannon and the Twin Iron Hail Autocannon, I believe. So that's the 2 units you get there. I would almost always go with the Incendium Cannon because it hits automatically and it's 10 points cheaper, which is kind of handy, and with some rules I think that hitting automatically is really good. 2 times Iron Rail Heavy Stubbers, which is 12 points, and the Invictor Fist is free. So clocking all that is, I think it's cheapest with the Flamers 122 points to 132 if you take the Twin Iron Hail Autocannon. To speak about some of the weapons, Incendium Cannon is a range 12 heavy 2d6 flamer, so it hits automatically. Strength 5, minus 1 AP, 1 damage. Overall, okay. The Twin Iron Hail Autocannon is 48 inches, heavy 6, strength 7, minus 1 AP, 2 damage, which is fine in itself. I'd almost always go the Flamer, the reason being is that you can get to your opponent very quickly, you're almost always going to use it. Hits automatically, and if you are moving, instead of hitting on 4s with the Twin Iron Hail Autocannon, you're hitting automatically, and it's 2d6 shots. So if I'm right, it is slightly faster on your standard Dreadnought. It's movement 10, down to 8, then down to 6 as it gets wounded. It is only toughness 6, but you know what, I can fairly accept that. However, concealed positions is what really sells it. Concealed position, when you set up this model during deployment, it can be set up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone and any enemy models. What? You know, like a Dreadnought, or Warsuit, that can be sneaky. I don't know, lore-wise, I'm sure if you read the section they can justify it, but yeah, sure. Setting up that close with such a deadly unit with a Flamer, and then it's Invictor Fist, so I've got a wee bit of section talking about this. Do I? Yeah, no I don't. So I'll just speak about this quickly here. It's got 4 attacks basic. Its Invictor Fist brings it to strength times 2, so strength 14. Minus 3 AP, 3 damage. Very solid. No minuses to hit. I believe you get Shock Assault. Yeah, Angels of Death, Shock Assault. So you're going to get 5 attacks on charge roll when you are charged. So deploy 9 inches away. You then move in and you find another unit and you flame that with 2d6 automatic hits. Strength 5, minus 1 AP, 1 damage. Great, there might be another vulnerable unit there. Charge into a unit. 5 attacks, hitting on 3s. Strength 14, minus 3 damage. That can really punch out a unit quite effectively there. Yeah, I just think the concealed position, you're just getting a really good tactical unit straight in there. has a bunch of other guns as well. 122 points to 132 points. If you get first turn, this may hurt. This may truly, truly hurt. I'm intrigued to see how people are going to use it, how stratagems are going to work with it. I think this may be a very sneak hit. You're going to have to think about screening your units very efficiently, because if you have one vulnerable unit near this thing, it may just like punch it. You have a thing with multiple wounds in your front line. Be scared, this thing could hurt. So yeah, 122 points, I'm saying it's going to be not bad. Aggressors and Centurions are going to be the next thing I'll speak about. So in Centurion assault squads, now yeah, let's speak about aggressors and Centurions. I believe both went up a wound. Yep, so we've got Centurions are now up to 4 wounds and I think 3 attacks. I think previously they were 3 wounds and 2 attacks. In fact, I'm definitely sure there are 3 wounds because I had Araman. Every time he hit one, he killed it because he does 3 damage. Now that's no longer the case. So 4 wounds, 3 attacks for the aggressor assault squad. I believe that's the same for the other ones as well, their Devastator versions. Why is that good? Speaking of Centurion Assault, they may be a potentially very devastating unit. At the moment, they are 30 points a model. I'm going to double check that because I always thought 30 points a model, that is absolutely criminal. Yep, 30 points a model. Siege drills and Centurion Assault launchers are free. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that, so they're still 30 points, you know. Centurion, was it Centurion Assault Drill? I mean, I'm 90% sure it's free. Yeah, Siege Drill's free, and I'm going to say that the Assault things are probably free as well. I'm 90% sure I checked all that. Is the Flamers are 6 points per one, so that is an extra 12 points. So each model is 42 points. They are movement 4, so slow as anything. Weapon skill, ballistic skill 3, strength 5, toughness 5, 4 wounds, 3 attacks. Remember, shock assault technically brings them to 4. The champion's going to be 5. Leadership 7, 8 of the champion, 2 up save. Now their siege drills are minus 2 AP, times 2 strength, so strength 10, minus 4 AP, so knights will not get a save in combat, and 3 damage. Yeah, so that can be fairly deadly. So 42 points. Unit of 3, you're talking 126 points off the top of my head. Gonna give you, when you charge, 4 attacks piece, so 4, 8, then 5 for the champion. So that's going to be 12 attacks, hitting on 3s against, let's go against the knight, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, and if it's 3 damage piece, the knight will get no save unless you've got some way to get past the minus 4 AP, and you've got 3 damage piece, so 3, 6, 9, 12, 8 attacks. 8 attacks go through, it's dead, or at least it's going to be churned up quite heavily. So you have something that's reroll 1s to hit, you're going to get a healthy amount of hits. If you can find a way to augment wounds, then great, but still wounding on 3s against knight is not too bad. I can see them reliably, if not destroying the knight, really doing damage. The difficulty is obviously getting them there, but 122, 126 points a unit. David really loves them, and I think he's going to love them more. So I'm intrigued to see what's going on there, like that could be potentially very hurtful. Fast attack Inceptors, which is another one of David's favourite units. It's almost like I'm writing this with David's favourite units in mind. Almost like I read this when, what does David like? Inceptors went up by a wound, so Inceptors originally I think were 2 wounds. Yeah, Inceptors were originally 2 wounds, they're now 3 wounds, which is fairly nice. They can be quite deadly, dropping in, doing a fair bit of damage, but 3 wounds in them, and I believe they've not gone up in points at all. Yet they've stayed the same since chapter approved, which I believe is 25 points a model. If you take their assault bolters, they get 2, which is about 6 shots a piece. Very deadly. We've then got the Impulsor, which is obviously the transport everyone was wanting to know, will it be worth it? It's the Primaris transport. Now the biggest weakness, of course, for the Primaris transport is that it's only got a capability, I believe, of 6. People would have loved it to be 10, but that does give you a unit of 5 plus a character if you choose so. It cannot take jump and cannot take Mark 5 Gravis. What's its point? 75, 10 more than a Rhino, 2 Storm Bolters, making it just below 80. Yeah, it's okay. I would probably say, as a transport, it's a little bit lackluster. You want that to be 10, and maybe it'd be something to consider. And if there was more combat orientated Primaris, then yeah, that could be nice. But At the moment, I am a little bit wary on it. Some of the other abilities, the orbital comms array, could be quite good in itself. You can take a shield dome for more protection, whether you want to or not is debatable. So if you want to transport, yeah, there is that option. I think it looks cool. That's just me. Many people are going to disagree with that. Yeah, so that's kind of the main units. I didn't want to go through every single unit in the game and study every single stat and every single one. I want to try and get this video, highlight a few units that I see, cough the ones that David said. There's many changes, there's many subtle changes, so it's mainly going to be the army that you're playing at the moment. Check its stats, see if you're still wanted to. Any interested units you might be thinking about, have a look at them. You know, Centurions I think are going to be a quiet one there, the Invictor Warsuit. But with all the changes otherwise, there's going to be plenty to speak about on that one. My war gear speculation, I kind of already covered that. You know, I went that a bit too early. Chapter tactics. So yeah, let's go on to chapter tactics. Yeah, what do I think of chapter tactics? Yeah. So I feel we have all probably seen these by now and we know what they are about. One of the first Warhammer community posts that they were saying when about Space Marines was obviously chapter tactics. So overall, I think this was part of the Space Marine Codex that needed the most improvement. I thought stratagems, warlord traits, etc. needed improvement as well. But chapter tactics, so that when you went, this is the army I'm bringing, here's what they get as individual rules. And I felt the first sort of chapter tactics for Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, AdMech, who would be the other one that was there on Grey Knights, but basically those ones that first came out, you know, they're obviously decided before 8th edition landed, were all very lackluster and then they improved over time. And I feel they've done a great job on seeing where the weaknesses were for chapter tactics and where they've worked with further codexes down the line. And they're more or less improved across the board. I think Ultramarines are more or less the same. But White Scars, you know, they are heavily improved in their one. Iron Hands is okay. The Raven Guard one, I'd say, got a slight, you know, I don't want to say it's a nerf as such, but it got an improvement in where you just get cover if you're over 12 inches away, and if you're already in cover but not a vehicle, you get -1 tit. It was too easy to span Raven Guards and make it quite an easy option. This asks for a bit more tactical nuance. You go, I still want to be in cover to benefit from that, but if I'm not in cover, I still do get a benefit of cover. So it was nice to get on that one as well. Imperial Fist, huge improvement. We all thought, you know, the building one, that was terrible. Just that, you know, unmodified hit roll. So they essentially got their bolt drill, is now a standard rule. Fantastic. Feel bad for you, Iron Warriors, and, you know, oh, what's the one, Word Bearers. I mean, you know, that's a big improvement, and I imagine we'll speak about Chaos later. Generally, the chapter tactics, huge improvement. Better yet, everything in your army, bar Servitors, get the rules as well. Fantastic, keeps up with, you know, obviously Astra Militarum, Elder, all these forces that were getting these chapter tactics. Space Marines get them as well. Huge improvement. If they didn't do that, if they kept it to their sort of characters, infantry, bikes, etc., that would been a huge disappointment. So that is generally chapter tactics, huge improvement, brings it in line with more forces. Happy with that. Successor chapters, now this was a surprise. Obviously, if you go a successor chapter, you get a bit more flexibility. You can choose up to 2 successor chapter rules, and there's a huge bunch of them there. They've probably all gone online already. But yeah, very nice to see these. Let's quickly go over the ones that I think are probably going to be ones that are going to show up. So Bolter Fuselads, when resolving an attack made with bolt weapon by a model with this tactic, reroll 1s to hit. So if you want to spam bolters, there you go. Duelist, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model with this tactic against infantry or bikers, non-modified hit roll of 6, automatically scores a hit and successfully wounds the target, so you don't need to roll to wound. Throw dice, any 6s, automatically wound. I mean, great, you can't use this with the Whirlwind of Rage tactic. Overall, you know, that's good. Knowledge is power. When a psychic test or deny the witch test is taken for a psychic model with this tactic, reroll any dice rolls of 1, so if you're psychic or heavy, absolutely excellent. Long range marksman, add 3 to range characteristic of ranged models with this tactic. Yep, so further range, not bad. I've never really rated them so much, but certainly for rapid fire might be quite nice. Preferred enemy. When you select tactics, select one of the following keywords: Tyranids, Eldari, Orc, Heretics, Irish, Necrons, Tower Empire. When resolving attack made with melee weapons by a model with this tactic against a unit with this faction keyword in a turn in which they made a charge, was charged or heroically intervened, get to reroll hits. Preferred enemy is back. It's almost like these universal special rules that were before are appearing in codexes. In fact, I'm sure there's plenty of them. Stealthy is there as well. That's stealth back. I think that's a really good one. I mean, like, they didn't include like knights, you know, chaos knights. I think they've got their own one. They're not heretic saris. But hey, overall, pretty good. Scions of the Forge. Models this tactic that have a damage table are considered to double the number of wounds remaining for the purpose of determining what roll to use in the damage table. Excellent. David used that when he's used Elder. He sometimes takes a lot of wave serpents and things, and it's been really annoying to bring them down. I think that's going to be a solid one. Stealthy. When resolving attacks made with ranged weapons against units with this tactic by a model that is more than 12 inches away, they count as being cover. Fine, I think that one's okay. Tactical withdrawal. Units that the tactic can charge in the turn in which they fell back, just in case you want to be relentlessly charging. White Scars do it, and they do it pretty well. And Whirlwind of Rage. When resolving attack with this melee weapon by a model with this tactic in a turn in which that model unit made a charge move, was charged, or heroically intervened, an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores an additional hit. You cannot use this if you already have the Duelist tactic. Yeah, because Whirlwind of Rage and Duelist were probably pretty darn awesome. Good that they saw that one, because that would actually be pretty good, that your 6s automatically cause an additional hit, which automatically wounds. Holy heck, Duelist and Whirlwind of Range, that would have been crazy. So good that they sort of didn't let them culminate. Overall, I'm delighted by this. This to me is what makes Space Marines great, you know, on top of the other rules they had there as well. Sort of makes, you know, them beyond having to get a points increase is this tactical flexibility. However, this progression, you know, after this, other forces will be wanting this to a degree. I am, after all, a Chaos player, and gosh darn it, I see this, I'm like, I want it. Again, we'll speak about Chaos later. This is an interesting sort of development. How it will pass on to other forces, I have no idea. Will it not? I think it's good that it gives Space Marines that tactical flexibility, and yeah, I think it's good. Warlord traits, overall, I'm not going to go into detail on that one. I am a bit disappointed. There's minor tweaks on it, and I think the Warlord traits did need overall a good shake-up. Overall, I am just not that impressed with them. I think they're okay, but not great. Nothing I want to go into detail on. The good thing is we have a plethora of supplements, haha, and you're going to have to go and buy, and they have vastly improved Warlord traits, so you can choose from them if you are first founding or successor chapter on that one. Yeah, painful, but that is the way of it. I think that's probably the weakest part of the Codex is the Warlord traits. Let's go into stratagems. So this is another area I thought was heavily needing improvement, because the stratagems in Space Marines was, quite frankly, fairly lackluster, and later codexes certainly knew what stratagems were about and made huge improvements. And I just thought the stratagems in the Space Marine one, I mean, I think I played Imperial Fist once or twice and I struggled to spend the command points. So I think there had to be a good shake-up, and there has been, I mean, a very big shake-up on it, let's be fair. So let's go into it first and foremost. The most notable thing is there's no chapter-specific ones. Usually in most codexes you find a chapter-specific stratagem. There are none. Where are they? They're in supplements. Let's not beat around the bush. They're in supplements. So yeah, that means there's going to be plenty of other stratagems you can just generally use for general Marines. For the ones that I think highlight, let's go into it. Chapter Master has went down from 3 command points to 2. Chapter Master, especially if you sit in a backline gun line and you've not chosen your Chapter Master like Magnus Calgor or Shrike. Let's see if he gets, because I think he got promoted to Chapter Master. Let's see what's happening there. I know DJ, who's been on the channel once, is very interested to see what happens in Shrike. So if you're not taking a Chapter Master, it's now only 2 command points, so that's pretty good. Duty Eternal, good way to keep a Dreadnought going. Use a stratagem when an Adeptus Dreadnought model from your army is chosen as the target of an attack. Till the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made against that model, half the damage inflicted. Half damage is always good, and it's 1 command point. So if there's a Dreadnought you really want to keep alive, Duty Eternal, pretty good. Gravatic amplification. Yes, so I brought this attention to David. This is an interesting one for 1 command point. Use a stratagem when an Adeptus Astartes unit from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made with Grav Cannon and Grav Amps by a module in that unit, you can reroll wound rolls and reroll damage rolls. So why is that significant? It's 1 command point. And the stats of Grav are similar, not exact, to Destroyers from Necrons. And they've got a similar one which allows them to reroll all hits, wounds and damage for 1 command point. They already get to reroll hit rolls of 1, so they get essentially to reroll the 2s. But that reroll wounds and reroll damage for 1 command point can be a good wee trick. Take a big unit of Grav. I think Dave said the most efficient one he knows of, but correct me wrong, is Centurion Gravs that can put out a hell of a lot of Grav, even if it's like 24 shots. I'm speculating, I can't remember how much the Gravs put. I'll maybe do a quick check there. But the point is, at 24 shots, you're most likely going to be hitting on 3s, reroll 1s with Centurion Devastators. Yeah, Grav Cannon, Grav Amp, which they've got missile launcher, 1 Grav, Grav Amp. So if they're a unit of 3, 4, 8, 12, you're only getting 12 shots if I'm right on that one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yep, so you get 12 shots, but they're going to be hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s most time if you're taking a captain or something nearby, because you're gonna, or there's plenty of ways to get re-roll 1s. You then get to re-roll all the wounds, so if you're wounding on 5s, that's a heck of a lot of re-rolls. Heck, even if you're wounding on 3s, that's a heck of a lot of re-rolls. And the damage if you're damaging something that is a 3+ save. 1 command point, I think that's going to be a good staple if you take Grav. Maybe just 1 unit of Grav, 1 command point, they can really hurt sort of vehicles. They work similar to Destroyers in that regard and generally can be quite damaging. So yeah, interesting to see that one. Fury of the First, 1 command point, is basically, I think, +1 tip with Terminators, whether it's ranged, Thunder Hammers, etc. Good way to mitigate that, so I think that's a alright one if you want to take Terminators. Transhuman Physiology, that's on another page. Use a stratagem when an Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that is not a vehicle or servitor is chosen to be the target of an attack. Till the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made against that unit, an unmodified roll of 1 to 3 always fails, irrespective of any abilities that the weapon or the module making that attack may have. That's really good. You know, you might be, you know, a good unit of, let's say, you know, Terminators are toughness 4, you know, and then you get hit by Battle Cannon after Battle Cannon. It means instead of wounding on 2s, you need to wound on 4s. Situational, but for 2 command points, ignoring 2s and 3s to wound might be really, really good if you have a very good key unit. Adeptus Strategy, 1 command point, I think. Use stratagem at the start of the battle round if there are any chaps or characters from your army on the battlefield before you change which combat doctrine is active. If the assault doctrine is currently active, you can change it to tactical. Alternative, tactical 1 is active, you can go to doctrine. It can only be used once. This stratagem can only be used once per battle. So essentially, if you go down to tactical, be like, oh, I'd like to go back to Devastator this turn, you can do. It's 1 command point. It gives you that sort of go back on the doctrines that you choose. I think that's a very good staple. You're probably going to be going down the phase as it kind of works, but generally a good bit of flexibility there as well. Let's go into relics. The Shield Eternal, changed frankly and nerfed. Having damage, it goes I think from 3 up invul and then 5 up ignore wounds. It used to be half the damage. 5 up ignore wounds is going to be better against things that are maybe damage 1, possibly damage 2, but damage 6 is probably going to be better to half that damage to ignore 3 straight off the bat, depending on people's view on that one. Standard of Emperor Ascendant, which David loves, has got changed. This changed in a big way. It used to be +1 to your ability to sort of come back and make 1 last shot or attack. Not anymore. This has taken away that +1 to your roll, so instead of coming back on 3s, it's come back on 4s. It's now a 3-inch range, an additional 3-inch range, so it's a bubble of 9 inches. I think I spoke to David before that and I told him that and he went, actually I agree with that. He was like using Hellblasters and they were getting like another shot on 3 pluses, which he spammed and it did end up being really, really devastating. In fact, DG used it against me as well, really, really hurt. So yeah, overall, I'm happy to see that get a little bit reduced. Then a whole bunch of extra, because there's no chapter specific ones. The chapter specific ones, guess what they are? Oh, they're supplements. The only one I saw that really grabbed my eye though was Reliquary of Gathlamor. I murdered that pronunciation. And I brought this to David's attention, he was like, damn! Primaris model only. When a psychic test is taken for an enemy model within 18 inches of a model from your army with this relic, subtract 1 from the total. So I may have butchered that one. Yeah, when a psychic test is taken, basically -1 to everyone within 18 inches. So -1, that's okay in itself. In addition, when a psychic test is failed for an enemy model within 18 inches of a model from your army with this relic, roll a d6. On a 4+, that model suffers d3 mortal wounds. Oh boy, that is going to be devastating for things like demons, Grey Knights, Thousand Suns, possibly Elder. Things that want to lose psychic abilities. It's not when you miscast, it's when you fail and you're already given -1. Your opponent's going to have to think really, really carefully about casting. That I think is going to be a quiet sleeper hit for people going, I'm against psychic heavy armies. Let's take that. Yep, I think pretty darn solid, and Primaris only, which is interesting. Let's go into psychic abilities. I didn't know the obstruction discipline so much, I didn't look into that one because I didn't have the book on me when doing research for them, because that's come from Shadowspear and from Vigilus, so I didn't have that on me. There might be some changes, but I didn't go into too much detail. The Liberius one, again, there's nothing too much I saw that I was like, that's excellent. Mostly it's fine. The only thing I noticed that changed was pure null zone went from 8 to 7 warp charge. David thinks, no, that's too good at warp charge 8. I think warp charge 7 is fine. I know David uses it a lot. It's almost like I wrote this looking at all of David's tricks. But yeah, that's okay in that one. Warp charge 7 I can be fairly accepting of. Let's go into finally, and last sort of page before points, and I'm not going to discuss points because there is so many pages of it that I think I'd get a migraine talking about them in general. There are point changes in a lot of areas, and if I tried to reread them all, I think my mind would melt. So I'm not going to talk about them, and many people are going to instantly switch off there going, that's what I wanted was the points. Points are going to leak soon, and that's a huge amount of work to go through nearly probably 200 point changes and check them against book. Notice the literacy of battles. So you remember when people went, those what are they called, Dark Apostles for Chaos, they got some of those prayers they can do. Well, now your chaplain can do so as well. And great, I think that's a great addition for chaplains as it was for Dark Apostles, giving them a real good ability. I won't talk about the ability in itself because I think it's basically on a 3+ that you can activate this ability on. I think it's before the start of the turn or the battle round. I'll speak about the ones that stand out, and I believe they're very similar to the Dark Apostles. Catechisms of Fire, probably murdered pronunciation. If this litancy is inspired, select one friendly chapter unit within 6 inches of this model. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by this model in that unit against closest visible enemy unit, add 1 to wound rolls. So yeah, it's a ranged augment to your wound as long as it's the closest enemy one. Now I believe in Space Marine Codex and many other codexes, it's very tough to get augmentations to wound, so that is very good in itself. Have a knight barreling down towards you, a deadly berserker's coming towards you, you've got a ranged unit that wants to target them, great, add 1 to wound results. I think that's going to be a very big staple when it comes to chaplains, adding on to that one. The other one is Recitation of Focus. If this, let's say, is inspiring, select one friendly chapter unit within 6 inches of the model. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by a model in that unit, add 1 to it. So say you don't want to target the nearest unit, but you still want to get a buff to that range unit, add +1 to hit. Hellblaster's going to love it, other units going to love it. Great, +1 to hit is always good in that regard. So you know what, that's kind of the codex. I'm not going to go into points because by Jove there's a lot of them. I could go into the main ones. I think I mentioned that Centurions were cheap. Yeah, there's plenty of them on that one. I'm sure they'll appear soon enough, so there's plenty of them to go on that one. So in that one I'm going to summarise very quickly. I think this is a great move for Space Marines. Why? Many people talked online, I believe they're saying, oh, the points need to be adjusted. The points aren't being adjusted. The army isn't really getting what it needs. And I'd say points adjustments are fine, you can make that. But when it comes to these elite-based armies, you know, Space Marines, Adeptus Astartes, Heretic Astartes in general, these sort of elite armies, Custodes, you know, Grey Knights, you know, whatever, elite-based armies, these power armor ones, we've learned that maybe stats are not the thing that decides points. An example I saw on, I think, Spiky Bits or something, it was someone put up a really good article on it. The difference between Intercessor and Terminator is really just a +1 save, is their Terminator's 2+ save and a 5+ pinball, that's special rules, and then Inceptor is a 3+ save. But the stats are more or less the same, but the points are way off. So I'm like, when it comes to stats, maybe they shouldn't be completely defining of the points. What I think is these elite-based armies is the special rules they get. You know, they should have tactical flexibility, maybe that's more to Space Marines, but they should have rules that allow them to feel like, yeah, we're an elite army because we can do more, not by our stats, but the fact that we can. And I think this is perfectly done by Space Marines. Many people might be going, damn, they're overpowered now. I'm sure there's going to be many people who are going to find breaking combinations, add on 6 supplements with goodness knows how many more relics. Let's say there's 15 relics per supplement. Come on, Ross, do 15 times 6. What's that, 75 or something? I don't know, I'm doing it very quickly off the head. 90? Yep, that seems more reasonable. 90. Crazy. Crazy. That's a huge amount of relic options, stratagem options. Space Marines have came into a huge improvement. And I'm happy for it. I don't play Space Marines, but I'm happy for it. I feel you can take the book in itself as a beginner and make up your own stuff with Space Marines and go from there. And then you can go, oh man, I really like those white scars. I'd like to get more and get the Codex supplement and evolve. And then if you're a player of all Space Marines, pull out your wallets, you're going to be buying a lot of books. But I felt if you tried to fit in those 90 extra relics, all the stratagems, I mean, the Space Marine book would be a tomb, be bigger than the rule book in on itself. With that, let's speak about the rulebook. I'm going to end the Space Marine section there, and this means I'm going to try and do this very quickly, and I'd love to do a section talking about this because I was trying to speculate stuff of where the game is in general, because this is now moving on from getting all the armies from their indexes moving forward to an army that has been evolved from its first 8th edition iteration. And I think they've done a great job, Space Marines. So what does that mean? What are the things I've seen that I'm a problem? One, I think the main thing that should have been done, and I'm sure it's very much on their mind, is that the starter set, which for love of me I can't remember what it's called, Death Guard versus Primaris, needed to be redone. It needed to be redone, and maybe the new Primaris stuff should have been in it. I think they're mainly stealth units, but Primaris stuff should have been inside it. Against who, I don't know. You could have updated more models if you wanted. A force could have been in it. I mean, I'll go into who I think it should have been later on, but you know, maybe it could have been Chaos Space Marines because they've taken a huge amount of new units. It's been easy to put in there. But the main reason I think it would be a good update, it's been 2 years, and the rulebook needs to be updated. And it still needs to be 8th edition, fine. The rulebook needs to be updated for beginners. That beginner box set now I feel is very outdated. It needs to have a new rulebook so that they go, look, if you buy this rulebook, you need to go online and learn a lot of different rules. You need to learn the rules in this book and then look at the things that have changed. There needed to be a new rulebook for beginners, for people who prefer a printed format to see their rules, just so that it condenses everything into there. Obviously there would be FAQs and everything on that one as well. The only reason I can think that they've delayed the rulebook before doing Space Marines, because I believe they should have started with the rulebook and then started updating the Codex as tightening the rule, because the rulebook is the foundation onto Space Marines. Is that if you had the rulebook solidified and going, look, we've then readdressed all the erratas and everything, they're in a book. They're in a book and it's reformatted. The only reason I can think that they've wanted to keep that back is they're still evolving the game and they're not quite comfortable putting it in print yet. But I do think that they need to think about doing that at some point. For beginners, for people in printed form, whatever. I just think that a more solidified rulebook, which will be errated, you know, 100 times over, of course, within a few months' time. But it'd be a good way to just clean it all up and get it into a solid format. And a new box set, I think, would have been quite nice. Quite nice to see as well in it as well. Speaking of, when it comes to the Codex and everything as well, I am happy with Space Marine Codex. I'm actually happy with supplements as well. I know that's going to be very costly for people, but it adds a huge amount of flavour to the forces you play with Space Marines. I think it's great. How that's going to be going forward, oh boy, I think that's going to be a tricky one. I don't see every force getting supplements. I think, or some armies, I know orcs might want them, maybe we might get one for Gazgo Thraka. They have had it in the past in 7th edition. And his guys, I think Goths they are, correct me if I'm wrong in that one, you might see it with Ulthway, etc. That would be quite nice to see a bit of balance throughout it. I don't think it's going to be as excessive as Space Marines, but I think it's essential that if they are going to go forward in that one. Let's speak about going forward Space Marines, and this is going to be unpopular opinion time. Unpopular opinion. I think they need to double down in Space Marines now. Finish Space Marines by December. I think when it comes to Primaris, it's taken 2 years to give them their basic transport. That's too long. They shouldn't add any more Primaris units. The Codex is there, done. Don't add any more for at least another 1.5 to 2 years. That is a very good Codex, let's keep it in there. But I think you need to now that you've got almost the foundations of Space Marines, begin finishing them. Let's look at Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Grey Knights, Space Wolves, etc. Double down and use this as the basis of it and finish them. Maybe a smart move might be actually wait some months down the line. Don't do them. If you wait down the line, you can get the feedback from Space Marines. And I think that's what they kind of did last time. That's why Space Wolves, etc. took so long. We didn't see them. They waited, Space Marines came out and then got feedback. Actually, that's a good point because Grey Knights came out shortly after them and they became a bit lackluster. I think they took the feedback from Space Marines and influenced Codexes. But I feel now they know what they're doing with stratagems and know doing that. The supplements are good in themselves. I'll speak about them shortly. But I think they need to double down and be done with Space Marines, you know? I think really double down, get them done by December and make next year the year of the Xenos, year of the other. Yeah, I think that would be an okay idea. Many people are like, nah, let's leave Dark Angels and everything 2 years. There's a huge amount of changes in this. I think you need to go forward with it. I'd almost say, here's an unpopular opinion, that with the supplements you could almost make Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Space Wolves a supplement in themselves. People aren't going to like that, but I think it would just save space. Use the general Space Marine Codex in itself, and then Dark Angels, you know, the Ultramarine book I think has 7 units, mainly special characters. Dark Angels are probably in the teens, and same with Space Wolves, etc. You don't need to have Dreadnoughts again in that one. You can use Space Marine in general for that one. Maybe you want to have a big book that's dedicated to Dark Angels, but the White Scars have a huge amount of relics, they have a huge amount of stratagems, huge amount of warlord traits and psychic abilities, similar to what you'd get in a Codex in itself. So maybe you might see a supplement just addition for Dark Angels, and I don't think that's a bad way because they've done a good job with supplements, White Scars and Ultramarines. Maybe they'll give you a big book that just encompasses everything from Space Marines into them, I don't know. But I think they should double down. I think they should double down, finish Marines. I think they also need to update Custodes, because now I think Space Marines do much better than Custodes in general. I think that would be a good one to move ahead with. Get them, but maybe they want to make additional units. They certainly need a lot more additions to Custodes to make them, I think, a fuller army. So maybe that might be one to leave till next year as well. Yeah, kind of the feeling inside me goes, right, you've started with this with Space Marines, let's double down and be done. I want to see the year of the Xenos next year. I think I sort of said to myself this year was going to be the year of Xenos. I fully admit I was highly wrong. Apparently it's the year of Chaos and then towards the end of the year Space Marines. So I'd love to see your year of Xenos. I want to see, you know, and people might ask for it now and I'm like, give it to the end of the year, let next year be the year of Xenos. I want to see Eldar get updated models. Eldar are a popular army. Updating the models I think would be a surefire win. I want to see Vect. I want to see special character Dark Eldar. Please, 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 please. I'm begging you, please. I actually wouldn't have minded a Lord of War for Space Marines. They don't have one other than Guilliman. I would have loved like a bigger war suit. People are a bit shaking that one. I think a lot of forces should have a Lord of War. Knights and everything I don't count. I'm diverging, I don't want to speak about Space Marines anymore. I mean, I want next year to be Year of Xenos. I want to see, you know, and maybe this is the time to shout about it. I know it takes a number of, sometimes years to do, we've seen Sister Bow years to do new models and everything, but this is the time to shout about it. This is the time to do it. Let's double down on Space Marines. Let's make next year to be the year of the Xenos. Yeah, that's a couple of ideas. I could go into a bit more further. I feel that I'd love to have a chat with someone on it and mainly speak about it. But yeah, that's kind of my last notes on that one. So thanks again for watching, guys. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe. There's lots to talk about here. Would you like me to speak a bit more on my thoughts on the game going forward? Maybe I'm completely wrong in that. Maybe I'm completely wrong with Space Marines. Tell me some broken stuff. David will read them and use them against me when it's Imperial Fists and White Scars. So I'm looking forward to reading all the comments. And if there's any, I think Dave is going to try and reply to as many as he can today as well. So thanks again. Comment, share, like, and subscribe. Check us out on social media. We've got projects coming. And check us out on Patreon to help support the channel, bring you more content. And we'll see you on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.